There is a price for remembering. In the Imperium of Man, forgetting is mercy. The common citizen knows nothing of the dark age of technology when humanity reached for the stars with hands unscarred by superstition. They do not remember the machines that thought, the intelligences that built worlds and moments, the golden age that burned to ash 10,000 years before the Emperor walked among men. This forgetting is a gift. It lets them sleep. It lets them pray. But the tech priests of Mars remember everything. They remember because they must. Because someone has to carry the weight of what was lost. Because every lost gun that fires, every void ship that crosses the black, every breath recycled through a hive city's lung, all of it depends on knowledge so ancient that speaking it aloud feels like blasphemy. The Adeptus Mechanicus does not innovate. They do not invent. They excavate the bones of a better age and pray that the machine god will forgive them for understanding so little. To be a tech priest is to stand at the edge of a cliff made of secrets, staring into a darkness that stares back. It is to replace your flesh with metal not because you hate what you were born as, but because flesh fails, and the omniscia's work cannot wait for weakness. It is to whisper the litany of ignition over an engine you do not truly comprehend, knowing that faith, not understanding, is what keeps it alive. They are not men anymore. They are not machines either. They are something in between, something the Imperium needs but does not trust, something sacred and profane at once. And when the galaxy screams, when Xenos swarm and heretics rise and the servants of the dark gods come crawling from the warp, it is the tech priests who keep the guns firing. It is they who keep the lights on. It is they who remember. This is the story of that burden. This is the cursed duty of those who serve the Omnicia. If you've ever wondered what it means to live in a universe where knowledge is prayer and understanding is heresy, then stay with me. And if you find yourself drawn into the cold light of the machine god's gaze, consider leaving a like. It tells the algorithm that the Omnicia's word should be spread. Subscribe, and we'll walk these blessed and forsaken paths together. Chapter 1: The Flesh is Weak. The air inside Forge World Styges 8 smells like burned copper and sacred oils. It is a scent that never leaves, even when a tech priest ascends through the iron towers toward the observation decks where the recyclers hum their endless hymn. The smell seeps into robes, into augmetic joints, into the few patches of skin that remain. For those born here, it is the smell of home. For those who come from elsewhere, it is the smell of transformation. Muggos biologist Hexmark 7 stands in the sanctum of induction, watching a new aspirant prepare for his first augmentation. The boy is 16 Terran Standard years old. His name is Thaddeus Crane, though soon that name will matter less than the designation he receives. He lies on a surgical altar that gleams under white lumen strips, his chest rising and falling too quickly. Fear. A natural response. The flesh remembers what it is about to lose. Hexmark 7 has performed this ritual 4,231 times. Each one is different. Some aspirants scream. Some recite the catechism of the cog until their voices break. Some simply stare at the ceiling, eyes wide and wet, while the servoarms descend. Thaddeus does none of these things. He closes his eyes. His lips move in silence. Prayer, perhaps. Or goodbye. The Muggos leans closer, his own face a patchwork of metal plating and synthetic skin stretched too tight over augmetic bones. His voice, when it comes, is layered with vox distortion, a sound like wind through iron pipes. You understand what you surrender today. It is not a question, but Thaddeus nods anyway. His throat works. Words take effort. I understand, Muggos. The flesh is weak. The flesh is weak, Hexmark 7 repeats, and the phrase carries the weight of Scripture. It is one of the oldest truths of the Mechanicus, carved into every forged temple from Mars to the edges of Ultima Segmentum. The flesh fails. It ages. It sickens. It betrays. Metal endures. Metal serves. And so the servants of the Omnicia cut away the weakness, piece by piece, replacing it with sanctified components that will outlast the frailty of blood and bone. The servoarms activate with a whisper of hydraulics. Scalpels catch the light. Thaddeus's breathing quickens, then steadies. He has been trained for this. Every aspirant knows the doctrine. Pain is information. Suffering is data. The body screams because it does not yet understand that it is being perfected. Hexmark 7 begins the litany of severance, his voice falling into the rhythmic cadence of sacred binary. The words are old. Older than the Imperium. Older, perhaps, than Mars itself, carried forward through the generations like a fragile flame through infinite night. As he chants, the first incision is made. Skin parts. Blood wells. Thaddeus jerks once, then goes still. The pain suppressors are working. Not enough to remove all sensation, that would be wasteful, and the Omniscia teaches that all experience is knowledge, but enough to let him endure. The right arm comes away first. It is a clean removal, precise and practiced. The flesh is pale, almost bloodless under the surgical light. Thaddeus watches as it is placed on a steel tray beside the altar. His arm. The hand that held tools, that wrote prayers, that touched the face of his mother before he left the hab block forever. It looks small now. Fragile. Wrong. In its place, Hexmark 7 affixes the augmetic limb. It is a standard Mark IV utility prosthetic, blessed by the priesthood and anointed with sacred unguents. The connection ports lock into place with a series of clicks that echo through the chamber. Nerve endings are sutured to interface plugs. Synthetic muscle fiber is threaded through mounting brackets. The arm is heavier than flesh, and stronger. It will not tire. It will not age. It will serve until the body that carries it is dust. Thaddeus's eyes roll back as the neural connection completes. His new fingers twitch. Once. Twice. Then they curl into a fist, slow and deliberate, as his brain learns the language of steel. Hexmark 7 watches the biomonitor readouts, tracking synaptic integration rates, rejection markers, pain threshold breaches. All within acceptable parameters. The boy is strong. He will survive this. Most do. Not all, but most. The left eye is next. This is harder. The aspirants always struggle with the eyes. An arm can be forgotten, adapted to, integrated. But the eye is different. The eye is how you see the world. Losing it feels like losing a piece of the soul, even though the Mechanicus teaches that the soul is merely another form of information, encoded in flesh and waiting to be transcribed. Thaddeus does not fight when the retractor clamps pull his eyelid wide. He does not scream when the nerve cluster is severed. But tears run from his remaining eye, and his jaw clenches so hard that Hexmark 7 hears the teeth grind. The organic eye is removed and placed beside the arm. It stares up at nothing, already clouding. The augmetic that replaces it is a marvel of holy engineering. A multispectrum optic receptor capable of seeing in infrared, ultraviolet, and the blessed spectrums of electromagnetic radiation invisible to unaugmented flesh. Hexmark 7 slots it into the orbital cavity and begins the ritual of connection. Wire-thin filaments snake into the optic nerve. Microservos adjust focal length. A thin stream of sacred oils lubricates the mounting seal. When the connection initializes, Thaddeus gasps. His new eye floods with data. Light becomes numbers. Color becomes wavelength. The world fractures into layered transparencies of information, each one revealing a truth that flesh could never perceive. He sees heat signatures bleeding from the walls. He sees the electromagnetic aura of the lumen strips. He sees Hexmark 7 not as a figure but as a symphony of power readings, hydraulic pressure, core temperature fluctuations. Overwhelming, Hexmark 7 says, and there is something almost gentle in his distorted voice. It will pass. Your mind will adapt. In time, you will wonder how you ever saw without it. Thaddeus says nothing. His remaining organic eye is wide, pupils blown. His new eye whirs softly, adjusting, calibrating, learning. Hexmark 7 has seen this moment thousands of times, and it never changes. The instant when an aspirant realizes that they have crossed a threshold that cannot be uncrossed. That the person they were is gone. That what remains is something new, something other, something sworn to the omniscient as eternal work. The procedure continues. Hours pass. A lung is replaced with a respirator unit that filters toxins and radiation. A section of spine is reinforced with adamantium struts. Subdermal ports are installed along the ribcage for future augmentations. Each modification is accompanied by prayer. Each cut is blessed. Each joining of flesh and machine is sanctified in the name of the machine god. By the time it is finished, Thaddeus Crane is no longer entirely human. 37% of his body mass is now augmetic. The Mechanicus does not measure humanity in percentages, but the Imperium does. 37% is enough to raise questions among the ecclesiarchy. Enough to mark him as other. Enough that civilians will look away when he passes, making the sign of the Aquila and muttering prayers to the Emperor for protection. Hex Mark 7 helps him sit up. The movement is stiff, unpracticed. Thaddeus stares at his new hand, flexing the fingers one by one. They respond smoothly, precisely, without the tremor of organic muscle. He touches his face. Half of it is still skin. The other half is smooth metal, cool to the touch, the optic lens set deep in a reinforced housing. You are reborn, Hex Mark 7 says. In the omniscient's image. In the purity of the machine. Thaddeus opens his mouth. Closes it. His human eye is dry now. The augmetic does not cry. Cannot cry. He looks down at the tray beside the altar, at the pieces of himself laid out like offerings. His arm. His eye. Fragments of bone and tissue, already beginning to decay. What happens to them, he asks. His voice is hoarse, scraped raw from hours of unconscious vocalization during the surgery. Hex Mark 7 follows his gaze. They are returned to the reclamation vats. Organic matter is resources. Proteins, minerals, compounds. Nothing is wasted. The omniscient teaches efficiency in all things. Thaddeus nods slowly. He understands. Of course he understands. He has been trained in the doctrines since childhood, groomed for this moment since the day the tech priests identified him as suitable. High intelligence. Strong pain tolerance. Minimal emotional attachment to flesh. But understanding and acceptance are not the same thing. He stares at his old arm, and something in his expression flickers. Loss. Grief. The last ember of the boy he was. Then it is gone. His face smooths into neutrality. The augmetic eye refocuses, scanning the room with clinical detachment. When he speaks again, his voice is steadier. I am ready to serve. Hex Mark 7 observes him in silence. This, too, is part of the transformation. The moment when the aspirant chooses to let go. Some never do. They carry the weight of their lost flesh like chains, forever mourning what they were. These ones struggle. They malfunction. Their augmetics reject, or their minds fracture, or they simply stop one day, standing motionless in the forges until someone comes to deactivate them. But others embrace it. They see the truth that the Mechanicus has always known. That humanity's greatest weakness is not the frailty of flesh, but its attachment to flesh. That to transcend is to surrender. Stand, Hex Mark 7 commands. Thaddeus slides from the altar. His legs are still organic, still weak, and they shake under the new weight distribution. The augmetic arm hangs heavy at his side. His balance is wrong. Everything feels wrong. But he stands. He does not fall. Walk. He takes one step. Then another. The servo joints in his new arm whir softly with each movement. His augmetic eye tracks the distance to the door, calculates optimal stride length, monitors his heart rate and blood oxygen levels. Information floods his consciousness, overwhelming and precise. He stumbles. Catches himself. Continues. Hexmark 7 follows at a measured pace, his own augmetic legs clicking against the iron floor in perfect rhythm. The integration period will last 30 days. During this time, you will train in the Hall of Calibration. You will learn to move as a whole being, not as flesh struggling against metal. You will learn the rites of maintenance, the prayers of lubrication, the hymns of activation. Your augmetics are not tools. They are you. Treat them as such. They pass through corridors lit by flickering lumen strips, past chambers where other aspirants undergo their own transformations. Screams echo from behind sealed doors. Not all aspirants are as stoic as Thaddeus. Not all survive. The weak are cold. The Omnicia has no need for those who cannot endure the cost of enlightenment. The Hall of Calibration is a vast chamber filled with training equipment designed for the newly augmented. Balance beams. Manipulation tests. Sensory integration chambers. Dozens of aspirants move through the space in various states of mechanical transformation. Some have only a single augmetic limb. Others are more metal than flesh, their bodies encased in sanctified plating, their faces replaced by vox grills and optical arrays. Thaddeus stops at the threshold. His human eye widens. His augmetic scans, categorizes, analyzes. These are his brothers now. His sisters. The other children of the Omnicia who have paid the price of iron. A figure approaches. She is older than Thaddeus, perhaps 20 Terran standard, and nearly 40% augmented. Her name is Lyra 9, and she serves as a mentor to the newly inducted. Her voice emerges from a vox unit implanted in her throat, clear and melodic despite the mechanical distortion. Thaddeus Crane. Designation pending. Welcome to the priesthood. He turns to her. His augmetic eye focuses on her face, or what remains of it. One cheek is plated in silver adamantium. Her jaw has been replaced with a mandibular augmetic that clicks softly when she speaks. But her eyes are both still organic, pale green and sharp with intelligence. Thank you, he says, and realizes he means it. She gestures toward the training area. Come. We begin immediately. The flesh must learn to trust the machine, and the machine must learn to serve the flesh. This is the first mystery. This is the foundation of all that follows. Hexmark 7 watches them go, his optical sensors tracking their progress across the hall. Then he turns and walks back toward the sanctum of induction. There are 14 more aspirants scheduled for augmentation today. 14 more children who will surrender their weakness. 14 more souls who will learn what it means to serve the Omnicia. He does not think about the ones who fail. He does not think about the screams. He does not think about the pieces of humanity laid out on steel trays, waiting to be rendered down into component elements. These thoughts are inefficient. These thoughts serve no purpose. But sometimes, in the deep hours when the forge cycles into low-power mode and the halls grow quiet, Hexmark 7 looks at his own hands. They are augmetic. They have been for 63 years. He no longer remembers what his original hands looked like. He no longer remembers the sensation of organic touch, the warmth of skin on skin, the simple act of feeling without sensors and pressure readings and temperature gradients. He tells himself this is progress. He tells himself this is purity. He tells himself the flesh was weak, and what he has become is stronger. Most nights, he believes it.